Okay, so this question from the November 2024 Sunday service deals with astrology and the chakras. Now, the questioner says, I'm really enjoying these lectures. And I believe the lectures that he's talking about is from the Kriya Yoga online Patreon series on Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. And we did have a class in there where we talked about the chakras. So he says, I have a question about the connection between chakras and astrological signs. Specifically, is there a deeper link between being a Capricorn and focusing on the root chakra for personal growth? How do astrological signs and chakras influence each other, if at all? Should a Capricorn pay particular attention to the root chakra for spiritual or physical well-being? Okay, so the gist of this question is this. First of all, each sign in the zodiac is related to a chakra. There's a positive and there's a negative polarity to each of the zodiacs, just as there's a back and a front and a negative and positive polarity to the chakras. And so Capricorn and Aquarius, these are two signs of the zodiac which deal with the root chakra and also the planet Saturn. And so each chakra is related to a planet and a sign. And so the question is, do the astrological signs affect the chakras? Do they influence each other at all? Yes, they do. When an astrologer is looking at your astrological chart, essentially what they're doing is seeing the state of your chakras. So when you have, say, Jupiter in the sign of Cancer, where it's exalted, Jupiter is knowledge, wisdom. Jupiter is the guru, and Jupiter is exalted in the sign of Cancer. And Cancer and Leo, they represent the spiritual eye center. So when you get Jupiter in that sign for you, that's indicating that within that chakra, it has this energy of Jupiter, which will make a person have all kinds of possible expansive experiences in meditation should they decide to focus on this chakra. It'll give them a greater capacity to understand scriptures and so on, because that's what Jupiter does. And that's because that's what the energy of Jupiter is doing to that chakra. And each chakra represents to an experience we have in life. So I'm assuming this person is maybe a Capricorn ascendant. And so your ascendant, everyone has a different ascendant. That is the fundamental expression of your general life path. So someone who's a Capricorn or Aquarius ascendant can indicate that some of the issues, the sanskaras and so on that they're working through in this life, they will deal with root chakra things, such as survival, such as being strong in their body, such as being able to interact in the world in a very practical way. That means part of their life, which is their spiritual path, will revolve around that. If we look at Aries or Scorpio, which is the third chakra, oftentimes that deals with developing personal power, or it deals with the capacity to be have healthier expression of ego boundaries and so on. So each chakra, as it relates to a planet, does deal with what you are expressing as a unique individual aspect of spirit. So as a Vedic astrologer and a yogi, and when I do the Kriya Yoga apprenticeship program, part of the application, I do request the birth data of people who are applying for that. And that's because when I look at the application and I create their astrological chart, it gives me a snapshot. It gives me a general sense of what is this person working with in their life? Where are they coming from? And that's all because how you experience nature, this physical expression of divinity, is based on what is going on within your chakras. And that means how you approach your spiritual path is also going to be based on what's going on within your chakras. One of the interesting things I learned early on is that there are two camps in regards to how the planets work. And depending on what your ascendant is, and also something called the Atmakarika, that will indicate how, in a way, you need to more effectively approach your life and your spiritual path. Some people who have a predominance of, say, let's see, Aquarius, Capricorn, Taurus, Libra, and Gemini, and Virgo, which would be Saturn, Venus, and Mercury, they can't really approach life in the way Yogananda approached spirituality. Yogananda had all this zeal, all this idealism, all this exuberance, and so on. And that's not how Saturn, Venus, and Mercury and their related signs can function. And those signs tend to need to be more practical in their approach to things. And in a way, you could kind of look at them as maybe more jnana yogis, more knowledge-based yogis. But then on the other side of it, Cancer, Leo, Aries, Scorpio, Sagittarius, and Pisces, these are ruled by Jupiter, Mars, the sun and moon. Well, these are very idealistic planets. These are planets that respond better to sort of how Yogananda presented himself. So what's neat about that, why that's useful and why that's interesting, is because it really points out that there isn't just one way of being in your spiritual path to be successful. Depending on how your chakras are activated for yourself, you might need to sit there and wonder, who am I, for years, rather than cranking out Kriya pranayamas through the spine. Now, the beautiful thing about Kriya Yoga, though, and this was based on a conversation, more of a correspondence that I had with David Frawley when I was learning Ayurveda and astrology with him. One of the neat things he had mentioned, he said that of all the types of yoga, that Kriya Yoga is actually the most balanced, because there are aspects of contemplation in it, jnana yoga. There are aspects of the fiery devotion that you get from Yogananda and so on. And so he had said that of all the yogas, Kriya Yoga tends to have a way for everyone, no matter what, where they're coming from in regards to the illumination of their chakras. And we'll spend a little bit more time on this, and then we'll move on to the next questions, because we have a lot to go through today. But the chakras and how the planets are situated along the signs which represent the chakras, and what your ascendant is, this is like your program, right? It's like, oftentimes you hear the description, if you remember going to a movie theater and you have a light shining through film which projects onto the screen. Okay, well, the light is spirit, and the film is like the program. And so the light shines through the film and it gives a particular quality to the screen. Well, the way the divine light flows through you, it goes through the chakras, it goes through the energies of the planets that have been imprinted on your chitta, your individualized consciousness, and that's how you see and that's how you experience the world. So that can be helpful for you to understand your astrology, because if you're able to grasp that, then you start to realize that, oh, I don't see the world because this is actually how it is. I see the world because this is just how my program is reflecting that light. And that's why in the Yoga Sutras and in yoga in general, the root of all of this, we'll say pain, or the root of all of this spiritual difficulty is asmita, or the false sense of self, identifying with the false sense of self. That is the root of all of the problems. And that's why the whole practice of yoga is learning to undo this. Now, ultimately, what astrology is showing you is just where your snags are, where your glitches are, where your strengths are. but it's not ultimately who you are. So you can use that knowledge, and you can use that knowledge to work out, well, how am I define myself as this ego, as this asmita, which is the root of the lack of enlightenment, I guess you could say, the lens cover that's going over the light that's trying to shine through. So just to wrap it up here, the astrological signs and the chakras, they absolutely influence each other. And depending on your ascendant and where your planets are placed, that will impact the best way for you to approach your spiritual life. Having knowledge of that can be helpful, but you need to actually talk to an astrologer or an astrologer yogi that you trust, because remember, this is the difficulty of all of this, is that most people see the world the way they see it, and they think that's the way it's supposed to be. And so if you are really identified to the qualities and energies of your chakras, and you talk to an astrologer yogi who says, well, here's your snag, here's your hang up, you might step back and say, oh, well, no, that's just the way it should be, right? And then you remain stuck in that ego space. So it's a very tenuous and sometimes tricky business to work out those things, because number one, you have to know someone that you trust that is skilled and understands the process. And number two, you have to be willing to look at what you might think is a very valid approach to life and recognize, oh, wow, that was actually just my programming, and I need to work with that. So astrology can be very helpful.